Far too often, businesses are so focused on new customers, they don't realize that the real source of growth comes from reinvesting with your existing customers.
Well, and people crave that authenticity, which is why for us, we talk about conviction-driven marketing, because what could be more authentic than that?
And sometimes that is the point, is a written letter is so simple, but it's remarkably different.
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. We are Kurt and Kristen Luidhardt, your hosts and co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's helped raise over $500 million and help elect over 100 members of Congress, 15 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now, in addition to helping political candidates get elected, we're helping your business get elected by answering this question: what if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into a lucrative and engaged audience that we call Liberty Spenders? Now, Liberty Spenders make up basically 76.5 million people, and they're motivated to buy from businesses and brands that align with their values. If you want to learn more about that, you can get access to our new best-selling book at libertyspenders.com/free.
Our guest today is Scott Martin, who's founder of Groundswell Origins. He has spent 25 years working in all types of marketing as both an agency owner and a strategist to national brands. He's built a reputation for striking a balance between leading-edge marketing innovation and traditional approaches to delivering sensible, informed, and forward-thinking decisions. He's author of this wonderful book, which I was loving as I was prepping for this episode and excited to talk about it. The book is Groundswell, The Unseen Wave of Business Growth, published in 2023. And he talks about a pioneering new paradigm for sustainable growth in business. He also hosts his own podcast, and I've also had a pleasure to listen to a couple of episodes and some really great content. He interviews the industry's top minds to learn how entrepreneurs and marketers can build sustainable programs that positively impact the world. And one thing I didn't know about Scott until I read the book was that Scott has a passion for surfing.
How did you not know that?
I didn't.
I'm shocked. Scott, I knew that.
I should have known that. Maybe I should have assumed. I mean, I think I have ability to be forgiven because I see you as a Canadian who lives in probably a frozen tundra somewhere.
Well, that's also been true. He skis and all. Yes. Oh, my goodness. Well, welcome, Scott.
You're forgiven.
Can add to the bio. Also, super cool guy who we've known for years because we actually met him in a Tony Robbins mastermind. And just awesome human being.
Yes, absolutely awesome. And every time we talk, I think I get smarter. And reading the book, I got that same experience. And we were talking about it a little bit before we started, but tell us about your process. What inspired you to write Groundswell? And what are you hoping that people gain from it?
First, thanks for having me guys on. It's so nice to be in, have gotten to know you guys, and then to see this whole Liberty Spenders concept, take flight. So really appreciate you having me on. I wrote the book for us. Basically, I really felt that over my first half of my career, I consider myself a pretty hardcore growth hacker. And, in fact, I had an agency for, as you mentioned, I had an agency that I sold. And it was primarily focused on response-based marketing, all measurable marketing. And I was obsessed over doing that. And I did it with large brands. And that first half of my career, I kept noticing there was these big, like massive growth that was happening that wasn't attributed to direct response. And that led me down to why that was. And a bigger question was posed to me by a guy named Peter Diamandis that we both know. And he says, if you really want to make a big impact or dent on the universe, solve an unsolvable question. And I was like, I'm in marketing. What's my unsolvable question? I was really stumped. And I realized, I was like, what if you could market and grow exponentially without marketing? That's what started my journey with Groundswell, was this obsession over, can you create sustainable exponential growth with less economic inputs, less energy over time? And the truth is, you can. And in Building a Groundswell is my book. It's a pattern I've seen. One of the ways that you can do it, I believe there's more than one way to build exponential growth, but this one's based on primarily the concept of You're building just like the word is, a groundswell. You're building a movement for change for good, as at the essence, the core of the brand and the business. And other brands like Patagonia and so forth have these elements, and they seem to keep on growing, and they defy direct response. They defy all these other things that create really linear growth. This creates exponential growth, and it really comes down to word of mouth. And so that this really is ultimately, how do you create the ultimate word of mouth business?
Yeah, I love that. Well, the power of the brand and the following, right? Patagonia is such a great example because those people are passionate about that brand for more than just the products that they provide, right? The clothing and all the other things. They really have people that believe in the mission.
And so that's what's really cool about your Liberty Spinners, is because it's actually the topic of my next book. We don't want to get into this now because we're talking about Groundswell, but is that to build a groundswell is people buy based on values. It used to be demographics. I think we've been all sold in marketing this bill of goods that's demographics. It's looking at your magic quadrant and all that stuff. And that's what was really flipped it for me, is going, no, that's not true. What it is groups of people want to congregate and buy and support based on these values. And that's why Patagonia, they share values and they live those values. It's when a brand doesn't live up to those values that it waters down that sort of impact of building a groundswell.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, well, it's 100% what we're talking about. Now, we're very specifically focused on a segment or a tribe or that we're particularly experts in, but this idea that consumers are looking at values now when they make a buying decision, in some respects isn't new. I mean, Edelman has been measuring this every year for more than a decade. And I think last year, 62% of consumers reported that they had made a buying decision, or they started buying something or stopped buying something based on a values alignment issue with a firm. And everything we're seeing validates what you're talking about, which is you can't look at a 45-year-old male who lives in Greenwood, Indiana, and compare them to a 45-year-old male who lives in Calgary, Canada. They're two very different people. And we've assumed for years that they're basically the same. Mm-hmm. And to some extent, political people are a little ahead of the game on this because we collect so much data. We get a sense of there's the subtlety of some of this. But still companies are marketing the old-fashioned way. Look, I'm selling something that boomers buy, so my target is boomers. Well, that's not. I don't know how helpful it is to know that.
Yeah, it's helpful, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. I think it's just there's more you can do.
Yeah, and I like the way you approached it. So if you're going to build a groundswell of word of mouth and sort of viral growth, you've got to, there's a 4-step process to it. Walk somebody through that process. What's it look like? How does that build your marketing ecosystem and transfer customers into advocates?
For sure. So the framework was actually built on, excuse me, my mentor, Don Peppers and Dr. Martha Rogers. They're well known in one-to-one marketing. Back in 2000, I co-founded the Personalization Industry Consortium as the founder, and I brought them aboard, and we actually were advocating for ethical information management around privacy. So I got to know them quite well, and they're the ones that created the construct of there's 3 ways to grow a business. You can get customers, grow customers, and keep customers. And I lived by that. Like, I literally built an entire practice for the first 15, 20 years using that exact framework. But here was the problem, was when I started looking at exponential growth, a lot of clients would come to me, and the first thing they do is they go, well, I need to get more clients, and we need to add more leads. And as a growth hacker, it's really, you're the first thing I do is go, well, why are people leaving? Because you don't want to fill the leaks before you kind of start throwing more water in
Yep.
there. And I realized that there was something missing. And the first piece that was missing was nobody was valuing the build phase, the planning phase, the strategy phase. This book, in this first phase, I reframed it from get, grow, keep to build, because the first thing is you need to spend some time, and you actually need to create a framework where you're deciding if you're going to build a ground. So you need to spend time to plan it and build it, right? So that's the first phase. And it's a little bit like an arrow, right? Like you're pulling the bow back, For an entrepreneur, it's like you're going backwards, but really you're putting tension, you're getting your aim, and you're actually preparing yourself to propel forward. So that's the first thing that I added to that perfect three, if you will. The next is I call it give is the new get. It no longer do people want to be gotten, right? Most people think I need to get leads. The new world that we're in, especially if you're going to build a groundswell, is give is the new get. You need to lead with a give. This is where the beginning of the freemium model came in, right? Which is the Dropbox. Uh, um, One of the guys that wrote Hacking Growth, one of the top growth hackers in the world, Sean Ellis, who also supported me on my book, he grew Dropbox by spending no money on marketing and spending all his money on giving anyone that was a rabid fan extra storage if they gave storage away. So it kind of built. It's called the growth loop. So this give is the new get is sort of like a major tenet of shifting the energy from trying to go and get customers to go, what am I giving the world? Which is kind of like a very biblical thing to be able to do, because you're thinking about, you got to prime the pump, if you will, add water to get water, right? The next is grow. I didn't change that, but the difference is instead of focusing on how do I grow the fruits, it's like grow the roots before the fruits. The analogy I would use is far too often businesses are so focused on new customers, they don't realize that the real source of growth comes from reinvesting with your existing customers. And so that is really what that whole section is about. And then last is the critical one, which is, and I got this a lot from Tony Robbins. That was one of the patterns I saw, which is transform. People don't want to keep. So it was get, grow, keep. Customers don't want to be kept, but customers do want to be transformed. And I'll give you an example. It moves in 3 stages. It's called move, change, transform. When you move products with no emotion, it's very functional, like you happen to be at the right place at the right time. I'm thirsty for ice cream and right on the street. That's called move. You just move product. But the next stage is if you change my behavior, right? Behavioral change. That's where most marketing lives. We want to change behavior, change emotion, right? So I was a PC owner. Now I'm a Mac owner. Okay. And then word of mouth lives right there going, I used to be that, but I'm this. Then there's the third stage. This third stage is when you transform the very way that I saw a product, a company, a brand, something to be. So think of Uber. The first time you rode an Uber, I guarantee you, and I've asked everybody this, is like, I guarantee you the minute you did, the first person you saw, you went, oh my God, have you been on Uber? Right?
Yeah.
That's
And then they
100%
went,
true.
no,
Yeah.
tell me about
Early
it. And you went,
adopters. And I was like, this is awesome.
right. So what did it do? It transformed what you thought. You had a preconceived notion of like this standard had been here for a while, and that standard happened to be this whole experience, which is really a great example of it, like overwhelming amount where you were compelled to tell somebody else. See, when it's word of mouth, when it makes sense, you'll word of mouth. But when you're compelled, meaning you can't help yourself, that's what you're aimed to do. So when brands go to transform your customers, their experience, it could be the way that they deliver your goods at the end, where it's going, there was all these apples and there was this orange. And so this journey of this book is how you create a groundswell by focusing on this transformation where you're actually, when your whole delivery, when you deliver your product to somebody and you transform them, every customer produces multiple customers. It's almost a guarantee because they're compelled. That's the book. That's the framework.
Yeah. Well, and that's I love the analogy of Uber because it's exactly that. Chris and I would fly to Washington, D.C., where they had Uber. They didn't have it in Indianapolis.
No, it's one of the first
And
big cities they rolled.
yeah. And we would use it there and people would ask about it or we would tell everybody about it. And it changed our entire experience of being in Washington, D.C. We didn't do the metro anymore.
Well, no, we were doing taxis.
Yeah.
Oh, they were horrible. And you got to ride in a black car. I mean, it was
Yeah.
the early Uber days. It was great.
Yeah. And that idea of transformation, which is that sort of tied to what makes people compelled to share about you, I think is key. And I want to dig into that a little bit more because I liked in the early chapters of the book, you were talking about sort of understanding your why as a business, and you called it epic. I think epic center, right?
Yeah.
And I sort of got that concept because you quoted Simon Sinek. I've read Simon Sinek before, but then you had another step that was related to that was, identifying the epic outcome, like you called it. that you're looking for, I think, in the way you're transforming your customers, like sort of connecting those two things. Like I have a why, I want to, save the world from bad marketing. And, my epic outcome is, I want to see people's entire, marketing ecosystem transformed or something like that. And I liked the connection between the two, right? And the idea that you don't want to lose the why in the middle of that. You establish the why, and then your outcomes are completely different.
Let me share with you a little bit of that epic outcome, epic center, the connection to the name Groundswell. It's a lot like waves. So
Mhm,
epic center. So think of epicenter of a storm. I just call it
mhm,
epic center, like you're the person. It starts with the founder. I'm behind. No Steve Jobs, no Apple. I know, like, if you think of a lot of brands that are built by committee, they tend to appeal to everybody and appeal to nobody. So it's
Hmm.
like, but brave brands usually start with a brave individual that's willing to, at the epicenter, they have a ton of energy. But initially, like, this energy is like a storm. Like, remember, think of Castaway, like that first storm when the guy's in the water, it's like the water's everywhere, right? It's very
yeah,
chaotic. When you're thinking about the epicenter of these big ideas, it's very tumultuous. But when you actually fixate on a outcome, it's like a storm. As soon as wind picks a fixed direction and it stays on course over time, way out in the ocean, that's when these crazy waves start lining up, and they create exponential. They create more surface area because it's basically wind over water, right?
yep,
And then it creates exponential growth, and it starts changing as it hits the ground floor of the ocean, transforms into a wave at the impact zone, the epic center. It's epic center to the epic outcome. So I kind of use that wave analogy as an example because that's actually how groundswells are done. Like that's how they actually are built because they're these powerful storms. So I'm trying to relate it to if you're an owner, like having a powerful premise, a why that's going to change the world. People want to follow that. Think of Tony Robbins. We follow him because we know where he's going. But have you ever noticed that somebody's like a storm that sort of they change direction all the time? You don't trust it. It's like a storm. That's where the waves are kind of fickle. They're not as powerful as a groundswell. And so it's no different whether it's someone's energy and focus as it is a storm. So I use that analogy as well as an uprising of individuals coming from the bottom up as opposed to it being hitting their perfect target market. I called inside out versus outside in. Most branding is outside in, meaning where's our ideal market that's very entrepreneurial? I'm going to go after that market. There's no energy there because if it changes, there's no deep why. But if I have a deeper why going, it doesn't, I'm going to find my people. I'm going to build my groundswell because this is the outcome I want. What tends to happen is it becomes a little more difficult initially, but it grows exponentially. That's what I've noticed is the big change is when these brands focus on where's the market opportunity, that market opportunity shifts, you have no bearing. You're starting over again and they do the zigzag.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think another way to phrase it, I love this metaphor, even though I feel like I'm learning meteorology, right, or whatever the word is.
waveology.
I don't know. I'm like, I never knew. So I'm learning about how waves function in the ocean. But what I think is great is there's so many benefits to this. To your point of, you have this big why, you know what, again, insolvable problem or what big problem you're trying to solve. Eh, That's just smart business for longevity too, because like you said, the market shifts, other things come in and disrupt, and you're still trying to serve, and you still have this big why, which keeps you focused on a path. Not only that, but I find you have more fulfillment in what you do. You have more fulfillment in your work. Your employees sense that they're bought into the great big mission. So now you've got alignment with your employees. And that just comes out. It comes out in how you're delivering the product or service. And so the the outpouring of that also typically means a better customer experience. And so I think this is great the way you've described this, because it's got multiple
All it.
benefits.
There's an actual shift. Think of this. Do you like being sold to?
No,
I'm one of those
absolutely
weird people that would say yes. I love a good sales pitch, but I know what
Yeah.
you're getting at.
So no one wants to be meaning sold to means I bought something because you convinced me. Okay. Convinced me. Like, oh, you should do this, right? Buying something means I'm in the decision. Like I didn't feel like I was coerced. I was like, I considered the options. So that was emotional, right? Rational, emotional kind of thing. But it's irrational when I'm basically bought in. Meaning buy versus buy in is what I call it. It's like most people are trying to sell or buy create all these reasons to buy, and I'm focused on buy in. If I'm buying in, like Tony Robbins, I bought into Tony Robbins. I rationally, my friends think I'm a crazy nut because I spent all this money. It's irrational, but to me, I'm totally good with it because I was bought in. I'm bought into the outcome to where this was going because they shared my values. This group is in alignment. And I was creating the transformation is what got the buy-in because I was transformed. See, when I heard a Tony Robbins quote, life's happening for me, not to me, that moved me. But I didn't tell the world. I went, wow, that's kind of cool. But then I read his book, Awaken the Giant Within. It changed me. And then I started telling people like, yeah, this is Tony Robbins. But then I went to a live event, UPW, and it transformed me. I was like Jehovah's Witness. I was like talking to anyone who would listen. I was compelled. Does that make sense? So it's like if you really think about those like buy versus buy-in as a really different differentiator, I would say anyone that's listening is trying to create a brand for exponential growth is go, how are we creating buy-in? Buy-in is your why, your epic outcome. It's an easy map.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are ways that you can transform your customer? You might think it'd be so easy to think, well, what I'm selling or doing is kind of boring, right? I'm not Uber, which was a complete innovation in an entire market and industry. But there are ways to do that. I love how you already gave that example of how are you delivering it. So I think looking for those ways allows you to keep buying or to create that right after somebody becomes an initial customer. How are you looking to transform them to give them that buy-in or that opportunity to buy into everything you're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, most people think they have to become Uber. I think that is something that I wish I dove in more in my book that I think in my podcast I'm going to expand more on is you could transform the unexpected. An example would be you're in a commoditized business. You're a plumber. Let's just use plumbing as an example. A simple category, hard to differentiate, right? Whatever.
Mhm.
But you do something, say, for example, on the way you invoice. You transform the way that you do invoicing and how invoices
Mhm.
appear and how you get paid, whatever. I don't know. Like that could be the transformation. And so that can feel not as heavy as an Uber innovation, but it still can transform a part of the experience, the customer journey. And to me, that is the seed of creating this word of mouth. And there's an actual I did a podcast with Jay Barry. He's a famous author in marketing, word of mouth. And we did this
Mhm.
episode called Talk Triggers. And so talk triggers can be another way of like almost like somewhere right in between transformation and word of mouth, where you're actually staging and seeding word of mouth. And the example he gives is, can I keep going with this? Because I think it's really relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there's this really it's not very good delivery. Like they're not transforming my burgers. It's a really crummy burger joint. So he's just kind of going, there's no delivery there. There's no innovation. It could be more commoditized. However, I go to buy in that moment of buying, moment of truth. I pick my burger. They put out a deck of cards. If you pull a joker, you get a free burger. It's a parlor trick, but think about this. What happens? I leave there and I go, I went to this burger place and they tell me the deal. And they're like, oh crap, now you're talking about it. Or, hey, I went back to that place and they go, did you win? Or, hey, I just won. Like any which way you could go, it's now created a reason to talk about your business. In that case, it's a parlor trick, but it's a really good illustration of you can actually transform your customer journey. And what I would say for somebody is instead of trying to be the next Uber, transform the customer experience, transform the delivery, transform the subtleties of small things. And they add up. The best growth hacks in the world, because I've been a growth hacker, most people are chasing these big growth hacks. Like I need to do AI because it's going to growth hack. That's not how it works. It works on little half percents built on each other. That is how you actually create this exponential growth.
Well, and in a commoditized business, I could argue it's easier because the bar is set so low. Everything is,
Totally.
your
You're right. You're 100%
expectations are
right.
like
Yeah.
ground level, like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go have his plumber come fix the
Because
thing.
you're in autopilot,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We're in zombie mode because we're just expecting a certain level. Then what would you do? You became unexpected, extraordinary experience in a moment. That creates this like, whoa, this is an orange, not apple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and the change in mindset here, I think, it's interesting because when you or I introduce ourselves and we say we're in generically the marketing business, right? Immediately, everybody thinks we make Dollar Shave Club ads or something, right? And they think of paid media, and they think of, oh, you buy TV commercials, or oh, you. And I think you're talking about something entirely different in the way you're going to approach your marketing with this groundswell approach, which is more of an alternative to just, okay, Give me a big budget and let me make the magic.
Right.
Oh yeah. This is if anything, I would argue that I come from a see, I'm gonna sound like I'm disparaging marketers, and I am. Is most marketers they'll show you how to spend your money.
Mhm.
I think like an owner. I'm an owner advocate. It's like I come from a really weird angle of a business owner advocate, growth hacking, and brand. And those combinations is what I'm realizing is going. Some of the biggest growth opportunities are the way you spend the least amount of money. So I'll put in a bumper sticker. Scale the unscalable thing. See, this is most people are so focused on automation. Let me tell you, like, when was the last time you saw an email that they knew everything about you? They wrote this beautiful email and almost sounded like they wrote a personal note, but you knew it was automation and you knew it. You can feel it,
Mhm.
right? That's someone who's trying to scale the intimacy. They're trying to create, but it's not intimate because it's not really there. So if you go to scale the unscalable things, this is where you can compete, and it usually doesn't cost much money. Like for an example, is I just gave this advice to somebody where it's going, they're trying to compete in an unfair market, and I said, what if you actually created word of mouth through writing somebody a handwritten note and saying thank you instead of trying to give reward for referrals? How does that land? Everything I'm talking about, I always say, does this feel right? Does it feel like common sense? This is all built on sort of biblical values. It's nothing new. In fact, it's a pattern that's been around for a long time. It's just that people are so eager in marketing to just go get more instead of focusing on the give. The give is the answer, right? Is like, what are you giving? The value you're going to give and create a compelling reason for in touch, buy in, and proceeding is really the secret sauce of moving momentum.
Well, and creating roving fans. I think it's been amazing. I love your example of the thank you notes because we've interviewed several brands on this podcast, and I have been, I hate to admit it, shocked at how many of them have said that they write thank you notes or everyone gets a personalized, welcome letter that they hand stuff in there. Or one brand, they get a personal phone call from someone that's a subscription based model and they get a phone call. And I think, you think to yourself, how could you possibly keep that up? Or how many customers do you have? And um, but when you think about it, those things, when it's just part of your delivery, it's not that bad, and it makes such a huge impact. So it's a great example, and I've been surprised by how many of the brands that we see that are disrupting and having success because they're focusing on those things and what transforms the customer experience.
Yeah.
Hey, business owners, did you know there's 76.5 million faith-based and conservative consumers that are looking to support brands that align with their values?
That's a $5 trillion opportunity. And if you're not tapping into it, you're leaving money on the table. Our new book, Liberty Spenders, is your ultimate guide to reaching this influential audience using conviction-driven marketing.
That's right. We break down real-world strategies that successful brands are using right now to connect with this audience authentically, build trust, and drive long-term business growth.
So if you're truly serious about standing out in today's crowded market, grab your copy today on Amazon or visit libertyspenders.com. And don't miss out on this revolutionary strategy called conviction-driven marketing. So, what you were just saying really emphasizes another point I liked in the book about with a groundswell approach, you're looking for no shortcuts. You're wanting to give value first. And I wanted to dig into what that actually looks like. I mean, you did talk about transforming the experience, but when you're, most people think of marketing as attention grabbing, right? I mentioned Dollar Shave Club earlier, and, both of us have gone to a number of Tony Robbins business conferences. And if I hear him talk about Dollar Shave Club ads one more time, I might have to, but like, what is the, what is the approach when you're saying, I'm going to give value first? How's that different? What's an example that people might really connect with?
Yeah. So when you're talking about the give first and providing value up front, it really you see it really quite commonly in things like freemium models, like try before you buy. That's creating trust, right? You're
Mhm.
giving them a taste of it. Most people like they think of providing free. They think that it's like, hey, I'll give you a free book with every purchase. That's transactional. That's not really a give. A give is, in my mind, is when you're giving something to the customer that's congruent with your offering. See, I used to do a lot of contests, and they'd come to me, and someone would go like Sport Check, big retailer, and I remember this one time they wanted to give a prize that had nothing to do with sport, and I'm like, what are we
Mhm.
doing? Because we got this, we think that people. I'm like, And fundamentally, this comes up all the time in brands. They have this illusion that I need to put something out there that people want. It's not that. It's about giving people a taste of your brand, your experience, your service offerings in a way that's a give that almost feels like I would have paid for it, or it should feel actually very much like I paid for it. So that to me is like that sense of how can you get people closer to you as opposed to going just buy from me, is going here, come closer. I'm going to give you a little bit of, ice cream shop could give like a little sample. That's a great example of giving, as a really simple example of that, right? So that's where I would start. It's because, but if I give you a sample of a burger and an ice cream joke, that makes no sense. And that's what people are
Right.
doing. So that's probably the first thing. The one thing I want to correct on is, there's no shortcuts. It's like, I think it's more the mindset of I'm looking for the I mean, frankly, building a groundswell is a shortcut. So I'm growth hacker, and it's like I call the patience is the new growth hack, because the turtle and the hare. Some people are just chasing the shortcut. That's what I was saying, is like, it's this technically is a shortcut, but when you're just focusing on, I don't want to do the work, I want to kind of cut the corners, it traditionally doesn't work unless it's a commoditized transactional offering, in which case that usually can work. And I'm not referring to that. When I talk about groundswell, I'm talking about a business that wants to keep growing on itself, and usually that's repeat customers have something to do with that, or they want to return.
I love this stuff, and I know from our conversations you got a chance to do a TEDx talk. So, did you talk about Groundswell? Or did you introduce a new idea out in the market? What was that?
Yeah, tell us about it.
I wanted to do groundswell as one of the thoughts, but the original TEDx I did was on my book. It was going to be on Title Shift, my new book I'm writing. And I couldn't deliver it, to be honest with you. They have like a pretty rigorous, like, you have to write your script, you have to be able to deliver it in 12 minutes. And 2.5 months in, I couldn't do it under 18. I just couldn't do it. And it was like, even then I felt like I was chopping a lot of the ideas. So I'm not smart enough to be able to make that concept of that book in that short of time. So what I did was, with 2.5 weeks to get ready, I actually pulled out one of the concepts from that book. And that concept is, it's based on 3 different stages, right? It's a lot like what we are just talking about, which is, first is having something worthy for people to remark about, right? It's usually means, hey, that was interesting, that moved me, right? But when you change somebody, when you change, like, wow, I'm gonna go from this PC, I'm gonna go to Apple because it's a way cooler product or whatever. That's where something remarkable, when you just are remarkable. When you actually aim to be remarkable in the experience, what you become is remarketable. So my whole thing is around this little DNA of, at the essence, it's about being delivering exceptional. And it can be, an example I use in my TEDx is this great experience I had when I was in Italy. This person was convincing me, you got to go try this potato. And I'm like, this potato, like, okay. Like, I was
Right.
like,
How many people get excited about potatoes?
she was so excited, but you have to understand, she had a level where she's a Michelin star, like, stay. I think a Michelin recommended stay. So she was, the whole experience was so exquisite. So when she goes, you got to try this potato, I was like, man, okay, I guess we'll do it, right? And
Yeah.
it was sort of one of those things where I'm like, I had low expectation, something low as a potato, but then when it showed up, it was really low because it was just a potato. That was it.
Mhm.
There was nothing. And then we ate it, and it blew my mind. It was like, I was like, I didn't even know a potato could. It was better than a T-bone, an LF steaks. It was better than like, Jill and I are going, no one's gonna believe what we're saying right now, except for we did look at Google, and apparently thousands of other people agreed that went to that restaurant. They're like, oh man, this potato thing's crazy. So they became remarkable with just a simple potato. So that's a great example of, most people think that they have to become an Uber, when really you can transform a potato, a invoice, an experience, a moment of truth, a thank you, a letter. All those things can make you remarkable. When you create the experience where you're going to remark about it, and really becomes remarkable because they're sharing with other people. So in my new book I'm writing, it's just one concept that's in it that I was able to kind of put on, because I thought it was just really land on giving everybody sort of this hope that doesn't matter. Everyone that's human, they have in them this sort of, it's not artificial intelligence. It's like we have this sort of innate creative intelligence, and our creator is like really giving us that. When we tap into that, that's where remarkable begins. It's when we shut down and we think what the market thinks, what we call cultural field, what we think the marketers think we should do. I would tell owners that are listening to this, go, what if you tapped in your own creative essence and went, what could I do that would just be so remarkable and unexpected in my business? It could be the smallest little thing like this potato.
So, I mean, inquiring minds want to know what was in the potato. I
So
feel like
we asked them, and what they did was they first bake it in a wood burning oven early in the morning, and apparently it's dusted in some of this flour. It's what's that? I can't. It's got a licorice flavor to it. Fennel. It's basted in fennel flour or something, then baked
Hmm.
again, and then drizzled with some sea salt and olive oil. I think there's probably a couple spices or something in there, but I mean, if you look at it, it's not very remarkably spiced or anything. And I was blown away too because it was like it didn't even look like it wasn't like fancy. I was expecting it to have like this
Right.
remarkable, like a sour cream and all these different. Like I was expecting this like incredible thing, right?
sure, sure.
So they tapped into it because they focused on how can I deliver something so simple, and sometimes that is the point. Is a written letter is so simple, but it's remarkably different, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I think I'd have people sort of imagine, sort of get excited about is it's really not about being an Uber. It's about surprise and delighting somebody in a way that it's unexpected that they want to talk to the people about.
I mean, I know I've got a good interview going when I'm taking notes, so that's great. I and when you and I talk, I always feel like I have some big thought that I leave it with, something that's next, and um, I wanted to really invite you to think ahead about what trends and changes in marketing that you're most excited about. What's next for you and how you're thinking about marketing? You may have just tapped it into it a little bit. Um, and I might combine my idea that you're a bit of a marketing heretic. So what's something that Scott Martin would say that would make a bunch of marketers uncomfortable?
Oh yeah, what I'm about to tell you next is the ultimate marketing heretic. It is the prevailing. So this is based. So thank you for that. The the premise of my next book is called Tidal Shift. If you think of a tidal shift in the ocean, so I'm using these analogies clearly because I'm a surfer and I love looking at nature as a real example. Just when you look at exponential sort of the best growth in the world, you know what the best teachers? Nature. I mean, literally, like it's like there's no straight lines in nature, right? Like that's how growth can be. Trees find a way to bloom in a crowded place. Like there's all these. I love biomimicry, like, and so I've been fascinated with that. So tidal shift is there's this shift in time when the tide is going out, low tide, and the tide comes in high tide. And in between, there's what's called a slack tide, which there's no tide going either direction. And my analogy is we're leaving this age, this tide of attention. It's been around for 100 years. It's been around since the first marketing company, one of them, it was agencies in the world. They had a famous quote called truth well told. It started with telling the truth, to be honest with you. But somewhere along the way, it became, the snake oil salesman, right? It's like marketers became liars. And so if you think of attention, it started back in Mad Men days, bigger billboards, then it's TV syndication, more channels, then in social media, more likes, more follows, more the bigger influence. Like trust became very horizontal, right? Which is a
Mhm.
news person,
Mhm.
most trusted name in news, influencers, celebrities. We were buying because of celebrity bought. Like they must have, if this person has 1 million followers, that all happened. It's peaked. We're now in this trough of mistrust, this slack tide, which is, and you look at the political landscape, it's about this mistrust, misinformation, misnews. The best marketing usually is the day that the marketer sold it to you. This is what frustrates the world is that we can't trust marketers. Think of a trailer, a movie trailer. When was the last time you saw this incredible movie trailer and you like went to the movie and you couldn't get through the first 5 minutes, right? And that's happened repeatedly, right? Like that's
Or the
that's
scenes that are
marketing.
in the trailer, they're not even in the movie.
Right.
They
Totally,
didn't
right?
even make the final the
It's
final cut.
and that is marketing. This trailer analogy is exactly how the state of nation for marketing. So we no longer we look at trailers with a bit of, did I just watch the movie? Is that all in there? Do I trust it? So then what we do is we go to coherence, cultural coherence, like Rotten Tomatoes. Well, a bunch of people watched this and they gave it a 10 out of 10. I'm going to watch this. Then you watch the 10 out of 10 Rotten Tomato movie and it sucked. Why? The vast majority of people that watched the movie were 12 years old or something, right? So
Mhm.
you're like, I can't trust that. That's again, no trust. I'm looking to what am I trying to do? I'm trying to navigate risk of my time for watching a movie. Very simple example. So then I go to coherence that's like structural coherence, which is IMDb, which is the uses ticket sales, critics, Metascore, all that stuff. And my wife and I, we went through. Our goal was to go through the top 250 IMDb's as a way of kind of saving us time. Going, what do you want to watch? We're like, let's just go through them in order, and we couldn't get
Mhm.
past 60. Why? Because half those movies they sucked, but they sucked for me.
Right.
They didn't suck for someone else.
Sure.
But then someone who knew me in my circle of trust at this plat community, because they all trust each other, they knew who I was, and they said, "Hey Scott, there's this really obscure up and coming podcast gonna be the next biggest thing called Liberty Spinners. You've never heard of them before." And then I go, "Oh my gosh, that's my people." Right?
Right.
Because it's going back to the word of mouth back in the day when Farmer John would go, "Hey, do I trust Farmer Bob with my bales?" And my whatever. He goes, "Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a little slow to get back, whatever." We're going back to the olden days where we don't trust anything. We're going to go to these circles of trust. Think of it like the dome of trust or whatever, right? Liberty spenders. This is why I think it's so interesting that you guys have me in your podcast. Liberty spenders. This category is a circle of trust, meaning you're shining a light on brands that are Liberty spenders would be attracted to. That's you guys are creating this virtual circle of trust. We are going to start creating buying decisions based on word of trust. And so think of technology, blockchain. Blockchain used to put your money with the lawyer up in trust because you don't trust each other till I get my money. Now the blockchain is going to make it happen simultaneously. It really starts in these three phases. It's going to be trust first, transformation, or trust, transparency, transformation. And so when you think of that, that's what's happening in government right now. It's literally preceding what's going to happen in business. So brands that used to be know, like, trust. If they know you, they're going to like you, then they'll trust you. I think that doesn't exist anymore. Meaning, just because I know this celebrity doesn't mean I trust them, right? It doesn't mean I even like them, and I could buy. Now it's going the other way around. It's trust like no, meaning I'm not. I need to trust you first. That's where give is the new get. I trust you first. Then, because I trust you, you're going to be known, right? You're going to be liked by me. Sorry, no like trust. I'm going to like you because I trust you, and when I like you, you're going to become known because I'm going to share it with you. Because that's going to be you're no longer going to be able to gamify and buy your way, to just buy your way to getting attention to build the trust. It's slowly declining. So my theory and my premise is showing these patterns that we're moving this age of trust. That brands that go trust first. So if they anticipate this, so I'll give you an example. Apple. Back in the day when you used to buy songs, um, I remember once I went to buy a song and it said, "Wait, Scott, you already bought that."
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh, what did that do?" I means next time
Mhm.
I won't have any resistance to buying something because I know they're going to look out for me. It's a really simple example of it doesn't have to be this bigger thing. It could be in a moment of truth. It could be a moment of truth going, "Hey, I overbilled you. I'm going to give you your money back." It could be like anything you can do to build trust. I think that that's where people that, like, for example, listening to you guys on this podcast, that's a form of transparency. You're talking about the way you think, and it builds trust because they hear the conversations and the way that you think, and you go back and forth. So it can be
Mhm.
information as well. So, anyways, that's my summary of like where I think are going is we're moving completely away from this. And by the way, I'll give you another quick analogy. Overproduced commercials are not trusted.
Mhm.
What's
Right.
working
Right.
right now? Unproduced, why? Because it's more raw, real. It can be in fact, movies or shows are trying to pretend that they're handheld cameras and stuff. They're actually mocking it
Right.
up so they can be more trusted. And last thing is, think of content. Content is going like this. So we're in a creator economy where now it's even going exponential, where pandas are going down slides with shotguns turning into a pizza commercial because I'm using AI. I don't trust anything. It used to
Mhm.
be, I trust video. No, now you can't trust anything. So now it has to go a different mechanism. And this is where I believe that our collapse of our attention and the proliferation of content is creating this collapse of trust in this moment in time that we've never seen. It's hard to get your fingers around, but if you feel it and you feel like, I always go, does this make common sense? Are you feeling this right now in the world? Most
Mhm.
people are going to agree with me that that's what's happening. And although most people are still staying in this attention economy and focusing on trying to get attention, I would say realignment. How do I build trust?
Yeah. Well, it certainly aligns, and I feel it, right? And we come from the world of politics, and people come to me regularly and say, "Well, what news should I read? Who should I trust?" Thinking, as an expert in this area, I probably have a real quick answer to that, and I don't. And I am what I advise people to do is you have to uh, be very careful when you're reading something to know it's coming from some perspective, and it's probably slanted in some way, and you've got to sort of do your own research these days. And it's because I don't know who to tell them to trust, and that's in sort of the news and current events space. And not to imagine, who do you trust when they're out there marketing something to you? And, Chris and I were talking about this just this morning. We were making a laugh over some products we've been buying to see if our kids will sleep better. And then all the stuff that we get shown on our Instagram and Facebook feeds, patches you put on the bottom of your feet that are supposed to pull the toxins out. And they have clearly AI generated, views of what these patches look like, and the foot baths or whatever. And I don't know if they work. And I don't think that the ads are reflective of actual experiences, right?
Correct.
And so, we were having this very conversation today, like, how do we find out if these things actually work? Because it looks cool. Wouldn't it be awesome? We could put some patches on our feet when we go to sleep, and it just pulls out all the bad stuff. And
Well, you
there
thought
you
that
go.
was cool. I'm interested in helping my kids sleep through the night. I have a whole different set of priorities. Uh, but it's very true, and we are in lockstep in the thinking, um, which again, I mean, the idea of building tribes um, and groundswells and building trust and being consistent and transforming your customer, adding value. These are all things, they just make good business sense all the time. But I think what you're touching on and hitting on, and which I can't wait about your new book. That's so exciting, Scott. Is that you're giving people a peek. They can start doing this now. They shouldn't wait until what they're doing now stops working, right? I mean, they need to make this shift now for longevity and growth, and that's going to be how they stand out from other people.
And I have want a couple things that they can do right now that anyone could do.
Yes.
That's great.
So
Yes.
yes, okay. So this is going to be surprising to people. I'm in branding. I've been branding businesses, now for a long time. And I'll be honest, I think that what's happening is brands are diminishing, personal brands are accelerating, and brands are never going to go away. But any founder and business that creates more transparency with personal brands, with the employees themselves, the owner can no longer be in the shadows. Think of restaurants. Restaurants used to be like the kitchen was way in the back and there'd be like some sort of weird double door. And you're like, boy, I wonder if our food's right now. It's like you got a glass, you can see them cooking. That's
Right.
transparency. It's bringing the back to the front. So that's what we're seeing on LinkedIn. We're seeing where the engineer is now talking about the journey of like doing this, and that gives us transparency. It lets us know the people because we trust people more than we trust the marketers. This
Hmm.
brand, the idea of I don't think now I think it's also where a brand still has to create that, but it's coherence with the culture. It used to be branding, or sorry, marketing innovation with two levers for business. It's culture, innovation, and marketing. Because no culture. Think of the promise of Starbucks. I could promise it all I want in my marketing. I can innovate well I want with Vente's, whatever, Fraccabolaches. But what it comes down to is that person that consistently delivers the culture of delivering it. That's where the rubber hits the road. It's the people, and people trust people. So if I don't have trust with the people, that's what people are buying. People don't buy from Groundswell; they buy from Scott Martin. But I have a brand called Groundswell, so it allows me to do different things. So I think that there's a new hybrid of where it's not just personal brands, like no Steve Jobs, no Apple kind of thing. I think it's both, right? I think they work together, and brands that really lean into building the brand transparency for the ownership, but actually ones that really go the next step are brave enough to actually create personal brand thinking and transparency So create some truth and transparency at all levels of your business.
Well, and people crave that authenticity, which is why for us, we talk about conviction-driven marketing, because what could be more authentic than that? You lean into that. You let people know who you are, what you're standing for, the value that you have. And again, that also breeds trust.
Stand
Yeah.
So,
for nothing and appeal to no one.
right.
Yeah.
Standing for something is you charting your North Star. That's you charting your epic outcome. I think standing for planting your flag and manifesto is really where it's at, because that means, and then the culture actually, and you show how you're transparently working in that direction. That's what people are craving. You're 100% right. That's why I think Liberty Spenders, the brands that actually stand for something, they're appealing and they get a shortcut. So now we're going back to the shortcut. That's a
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
shortcut because I bought into this way of thinking is transparent. I trust them because this category, I actually think they share my values. It goes back to the very beginning of our conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're seeing it all over the place right now. And, to your point about personal brands, I do think people buy from people. And, we've been talking to a number of our customers about that. Your owner's going to have to get a little bit more upfront and public and talking about who he is or who she is and what they want to accomplish. And we're even doing it a little bit ourselves. In 18 years of working in politics, we were always happy to be the people behind the scenes that nobody knew about.
I have no desire for spotlight.
Yeah.
Zero.
We're there to promote our clients, and if we're part of the news story, then we've done something wrong.
I think this even transcends products. I'll give you an example. Platforms. People are going to buy into what platform I'm going to be on based on the ownership and the transparency and the vision of the platform. For example, I use Mighty Networks. Their founder is committed to not interfering with me and my client base. I did 2 interviews with her. She's got a manifesto going, we're about independence. We're not like, if you build your group on social media like Meta, you don't own your client base, right? So that's a form of me buying into the policies and the transparency of the owner. No different than Twitter and Elon Musk. Twitter really is blown up because Elon Musk is transparent on there. And now people that buy into that are buying into that platform. Other people are going into Blue Sky, which is a different group. So it's like you're seeing this fracturing of people aren't just talking about buying products, where they are building their systems. And these, which are basically where these systems are really where congregation of shared values, these groups, right? That's what we're doing is we're these circles of trust. And so we're starting to see these little tribes and communities of trust sort of living in other places that aren't as that it's almost been manifesting into like even technology platforms.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
and
think one last point I'll make with that is I think that you're going to see with what's going on in the United States is brands that lean into free speech, like platforms, they're going to perform differently than ones that don't make that promise.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, absolutely. And many of these issues we're talking about, are now front and center internationally. The US significantly more free than Europe, where you can be put in jail for something you post on social media. And so I wouldn't be surprised as well to see some of this stuff pop up outside of the US because it's a bigger pain point for folks who live in Europe, where their freedoms are far more restricted. Um, and you're absolutely right. The idea of people sort of bifurcating onto different platforms, and also just the value of owning your own platform and knowing it can't be just stripped away without any warning overnight. And we all know businesses and brands that were killing it on Facebook or doing great on Google search, and then overnight a change is made, and then all of a sudden, kablooey, it's all gone.
But if you pay a little more for the ads, you can get access to them again.
Yeah.
I mean that's one of the things that really got me looking at sustainable growth, because it's unsustainable. This was born out of frustration with these platforms. I used to have a huge following. I still do I mean, I've got 30 communities of, some between 5 and 12,000 followers. I've got my own personal page has got 16,000 followers. Am I reaching hardly a fraction of them? Yes. Why? Over time, it's been eroded because their focus isn't on me. They don't care about me. They care about when they're in the community, they care about distracting the people I'm trying to talk to. it's an unsustainable environment. And most people, if that platform went away, they'd go under. And that's what I'm trying to be a little bit like Noah's Ark going, if the flood is coming, you need to diversify now and create more sustainable thinking.
Well, I hope everyone is listening and taking heed to what Scott is saying right now.
Yeah. Well, before we end, we're going to do a special thing first, but I do feel like, because of the nature of our podcast, if we don't talk about at least one of your clients, who we all know from political space, Tulsi Gabbard, I would be totally missing out on something my audience would love to hear. And so I thought maybe you had some fun experiences when you were helping her in her presidential campaign that you feel comfortable talking about, and any insights you gathered from that.
Sure. And I'm kind of limited to what I'm permissible to share, but what I
Yeah.
can say is, I was brought in when she just got deplatformed off of CNN, all the media, and there's a level of frustration. Her strategist that's working with her I'd helped her with some ideas, groundswell ideas, actually, on her campaign in Norway or wherever it was, and thought of me and had me go and meet Tulsi. And I was so impressed by her at the time. And she was running on the Democratic ticket, but she was very centrist. Like, she was very much about a voice going, we need to go across the aisle. There's a lot of things that the Republicans are saying make sense. Like, it's not just on party, let's go on policy, right? So, so what I was working on is, how do we market? We can't outspend them. How do we market when we don't have the PR platforms that you did have? We got to play a different game. We got to play a ground game. We got to build a personal game, and we got to create a groundswell. And the groundswell was stand with Tulsi. It's like we're standing up to both party and to Trump at the time, because she was actually using him as the adversary, but also now it was the Democratic Party as well. So we had to go, what do? You got to stand for yourself. So it was really that became a premise of it was stand with Tulsi. And Newsweek covered it. They said, we don't understand why in New Hampshire, I think it was, that she's actually trending well. And I can tell you it's because she did the work. There was no shortcut. She just did the ground game. She was baking cookies. They had baked cookies, showing up. I did the tour with her, and she was like going town to town. And it really was scaling the unscalable thing. And so in the markets that she did that, she beat everyone else. She doesn't have the staying power of the budget or the time to be able to make that pivot, to make it work for her. But when we look at side by side, apples to oranges, she outperformed with a fraction of budget because she scaled the unscalable thing by just really playing a ground game. That's what I can share.
Well, in those early states, it's all about those personal connections and interactions.
I didn't know there was a cookie baking element.
Yeah,
of this thing.
I can't remember. They're like a Hawaiian cookie that her grandma used to make or whatever, and she passed them out. They were so freaking good, and you could smell it. It just felt different. She started with aloha, and then she started explaining what aloha meant to her. She didn't start with the way that she went about it was she really was open to audience feedback, and I saw her navigate some people who were fairly negative and turn very positive because she just was such a rational, calm, and sort of clearly was able to really explain her point of view, and took the time and not letting somebody cut short just to hear them and move on. It was like prolonged, protracted conversation. I think people really admired that with her, and I think it really landed with people afterwards, because I'd have conversations and they were surprised. They're like, because they're used to it being maybe a speaker like speaking, and they're talking, speaking, and it's from the pulpit as opposed to a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I thought that would be a treat to hear a little bit about that. But now we're coming to the end, and we must begin our lightning round. All right. We always like to end with 3 quick questions, 90 seconds each. There's no buzzer, so, we're pretty liberal with our deadlines. But what legacy would you like to leave behind from your work with Groundswell Origins?
Oh man, what a great question. So there's a category in marketing called guerrilla marketing, right? Which is defined
Yep.
as marketing in unconventional spaces with low budgets. I want to create Groundswell as a category for impact founders that want to make a difference in the world. And when they go, I'm groundswelling, or I'm building a groundswell, it's a new category in Wikipedia or in the vernacular in the future where it denotes a slower growth initially, but really exponential growth, trying to build a groundswell.
I like it. And what about a topic? I like to invite people to talk about a topic that's off topic from, so it's not marketing related. Maybe it's a hobby, sports team you're into, something you love, and just pontificate.
Sure. One of the things that, if you follow me, you probably recognize that I love surf art,
Mhm.
and I have one of the largest surf art communities in the world. And I don't make any money from it, never have. It started as an experiment. See, I was building up huge communities around. At the time, I was filming backcountry heli skiing, cat skiing. So I learned how to build
Mhm.
a huge following around this beautiful, like we had photography, and so people are frothing over these powder shots, and it was amazing. I built a
I've
new
seen it.
community.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, and so it was easy to build a community. I built a huge one. It was one of the largest ones. And then I was like, I wonder if I could build a community where I didn't actually have that. I wasn't creating this powerful content, and I was already scrolling every day looking at surf art. I was like, what if I just shared, and I just, as a gift, I just went, I love this art. Why don't I start curating it? So I created this thing called Surf Art World, and now I share it. Now I have relationships with all the top surf artists, and I'm gonna get some training. I've already painted my own surf paintings, and so that's something I'm leaning into is um, surf arting. From my stand up with the TEDx, I'm going to learn to do stand up comedy. I feel like
Mm.
it's going to kind of, because several people after me went, "Are you in stand up comedy?" And I'm like, "No, I wasn't even trying to be that funny," but apparently they thought it was pretty funny. So I actually am like, you know what, that could be a skill that could really lend well to public speaking. So I'm kind of pursuing surf painting and doing some a stand up. So my TEDx was being remarkable. I'm going over my time already. My
Yeah,
stand up
that's
is
right.
about being remarkable. Or sorry, my TEDx was about being remarkable. My stand up comedy is going to be making fun of marketing. I'm going to call it unremarkable, sorry. So I'm just gonna no one's done a stand-up whole thing on advertising and marketing, so I'm just gonna make fun of marketing and advertising.
I like it.
I love it.
Hopefully, I'm not part of the joke on that one or anything I've done.
And no, Scott, my facial reaction was just laughing because I just wouldn't have guessed. Those are not on my bingo card. I would not have
Okay.
expected that to be what you'd say.
Well, and then we like to give people 60, 90 seconds to do some gratuitous self-promotion. So if somebody listened to only this 60, 90 seconds on why you should be reading the book or why you should approach Groundswell Origins to work with Scott, give us the gratuitous marketing pitch.
I'm gonna be a heretic. I'm gonna say you shouldn't grab my book unless you're interested in growing and making an impact on the world and having something continue to grow long after you're gone. If that's not what you're into, don't read the book. What I'd say is go to get groundswellfreechapter.com and get the first 50 pages for free and go grab it. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah. Well, here it is, by the way. Again, we'll show it. And we will put that in our show notes for those of you who want to get that free chapter. And thank you so much for joining, Scott. To get in touch with Scott, hit him up at groundswellorigins.com and then give us that. It's groundswellfreechapter.com.
That's it. Yeah.
So to grab the first chapter of the book.
It's 50 pages
And
actually. Yeah.
yeah. And that'll be a great way to learn what I'm learning.
Well, thank you, Scott. We really enjoyed it. And I know anybody listening, hopefully, will have gotten a ton of value. You guys will understand why we have been looking forward to chatting with Scott about this and why we respect and trust him so much. So thank you for sharing your time and all your wisdom and insight with us. And for those of you tuning in and listening, we appreciate your time as well. If you found value in this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us to reach other people. And again, thank you for tuning in. We invite you to join the Liberty Partnership community at libertyspenders.com. And again, you can get access to our book at libertyspenders.com/free. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Liberty Spenders Podcast. If you're a business owner, we hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights on how to grow your business.
If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us reach more entrepreneurs and leaders like you who are ready to make an impact.
And write something flattering because I read them all. Don't forget to grab your copy of Liberty Spenders too, available now on Amazon and at libertyspenders.com. It's packed with proven strategies to help you reach the 76.5 million consumers who are looking for brands that share their values.
We'll see you next time as we continue exploring how to grow your business with purpose and conviction.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode and the one after that.